Welcome to Personally, our community podcast by Persona. My name is Ed Ginsente, and today I'm going to talk to you about real estate. I'm going to interview Reuven, who's the co-founder and CEO of Deeded. Deeded is a Canadian platform that helps with the real estate deals. So essentially, when you're going to buy a house, it's a lot of paperwork. You have to deal with lawyers, and they want to make this process very, very simple. I think the vision is make this a one-click thing. So imagine purchasing a home online with one click. That's the vision. But let's talk to Reuven and hear more about his strategy, what he's thinking about, how he makes sure that he keeps like a trustworthy platform, and well, hear more about his thoughts. Before we kick it off with like questions about Deeded and all, I want to hear more about you. You have a very interesting journey. I saw you were like working in big techs for a long time. You had a lot of experience in this, and then you decided to become an entrepreneur. So I'd love to hear more about your journey, to what was the trigger for you, what made you decide to join, start a new business, and if why real estate even. So I'd love to hear from you a little bit on that.
For sure. And Happy New Year. And thanks again for having me. Excited to be on here. Yeah, I did. I spent about 20 years of my career, or call it the beginning of my career, as in basically climbing the corporate ladder and mostly technology companies. I've done work for some consulting outfits, but really spent more than half of that time in enterprise software. For me, I've always enjoyed, like, the one thing about tech is that you always get a variety. And I think, I'm the type of person that just gets bored easily unless there's variety in, the roles that I do. And obviously the technology just keeps changing, and the challenges and the problems are always compounding and growing. There's always something new to solve. So ultimately, I had the opportunity to work with, some of the smartest people that I still keep in touch with to date, and in different capacities and different roles. I've worked in marketing, I've worked in sales, I've worked in strategy, but ultimately decided that for me, ultimately, what I love is to solve problems using technology. And I just found it very constraining towards sort of my tail end of the corporate career to be able to do that, because again, larger company, you've got, teams, and you've got a limited scope of things that you can do. So really made that conscious decision to, I call it burn the boats, and take my chances, and gave myself a pretty short runway to try to make it with my first startup, which was also in the real estate technology space, and see if it worked out. So, here I am, I think, almost 10 years later, making that transition from corporate to entrepreneurship.
That's awesome. And well, you said something really important, because usually when you tell like someone's story, it's inspirational when it worked out. So we know it worked out because we're now talking, but I'd love to hear more about like this beginning of it, like when you're like transitioning, thinking about, what kind of product, what kind of business I want to build. How was that for you?
Yeah, no, I think I went through different iterations, even while I was working. I didn't feel that I was as engaged, or even, using all of my potential. And that, of course, got me into different places. I started speaking and blogging, and at some point started to write a book. And but what I realized is, even since childhood, my joy has always been, even as a child, I would, take apart things. My parents used to say they buy me a toy, and like 15 minutes later it'd be in pieces. Now I can never put it back together, but I always had that sense of curiosity to know and understand how things work. So fast forward to the startup world, I realized that my passion was to really solve problems, and solve meaningful problems. For me, just toying around with different ideas, real estate really came from my own experience. Buying and selling a home, I think, as we all know, is pretty painful. Everybody dreams about that journey. But at the end of the day, getting there is a big stress ball. A lot of people, break down, have nervous breakdowns, cry, and so on, just because it's a big it's a big transaction, and a lot can go wrong. So I saw an opportunity there. Of course, started exploring it further. Went out, talked to a whole bunch of realtors, a whole bunch of people in the mortgage space, bankers, homeowners like myself. And finally, came up with an idea, did a little bit of an MVP, went out, and that idea really didn't hit home, and I just got a little bit of the cold shoulder from folks, and after a couple of months, we pivoted to the next idea, which actually came from a lot of those conversations that we had, and it was basically one particular conversation really hit the spot to say, I really don't have the problem that you're pitching me, but here's a problem that me and a lot of other people had. So upon further validation, that's how my first startup was born, and just, coupling my own pain to what I heard from the market. So in a sense, we had pretty good validation that the problem existed, and further, if we can solve it, we knew that there would be some, customers or partners that are at least willing to share their credit card number with us, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. And I love to hear like the beginning, the first like few iterations. And you're right. I mean, usually it starts with a problem that you have yourself, and then you're like, is there a better way to solve this? And I'm pretty sure you found it. And then you find out that there are more people with this same challenge that you had. And I would like to hear more about what is Deeded now, because a lot of people are like, okay, so what did you build? What's the company? Would you mind to share a little bit more about what it is, what do you do, to whom? A little bit of the history of Deeded.
For sure. So again, Deeded started from my own pain point. I was buying the house that I'm in now. Was very excited to finally everybody looks forward to closing day, where you get that phone call to say everything's good. You got the keys. You can start moving your stuff in. You can call all your friends and family, tell them you got a new place. My excitement sort of ended when I got a call literally a couple hours before we're supposed to close from my lawyer saying something went wrong. We're missing a document, and unless you can get that document to me in the next hour or so, we're not going to be able to close your transaction. And what that causes is basically a whole domino effect. We had movers coming in with all our stuff. We had even friends coming in that weekend, and just that one phone call really got me rattled. Or I'd say rattled enough to have those conversations, to have the validation that the problem is not only one that I was having. So again, went out, talked to dozens and dozens of folks from the industry, folks that have been in a similar situation as myself. And one thing we realized is like closing your real estate or your mortgage transaction really hasn't evolved in the last couple decades. It's still very much a manual process. There's a lot of conversations. There's a lot of interaction back and forth to really culminate in that legal paperwork that you sign and all the funds that you transfer and signing your life away until you get your keys. But it wasn't a great experience. It wasn't a great experience for the consumer, because obviously, being a consumer myself, I felt the pain and really had to live with that disappointment and delay. And it wasn't great for other industry professionals as well. Like your real estate agent wants to obviously make sure that the transaction closes and they get paid for their hard work. Your loan officer, mortgage specialist, obviously the seller of your property also depends on closing, because there's a domino effect on that side. So that's how Deeded was born, and it really was born from a vision of like, how do we bring this entire experience to the 21st century? And ultimately what Deeded, became a platform where either consumers or industry professionals can come into our website. You can basically, very quickly sign up. And what we do is we'll assign you to one of our network of really great and amazing real estate lawyers that'll work with you. We've got an entire support team that we assign. And then we use technology to make that experience very much a night and day from the experience that I had. So we make it, for example, similar to how you can track your Amazon package or track your Uber. Now you can track your real estate closing and, really, play by play in terms of what's going on. You can sign your documents virtually instead of having to take a day off work with your partner to go sign the paperwork. And ultimately, our vision continues to really build the most seamless and frictionless closing experience for real estate and mortgages. We continue to work on it through a combination of basically people, process, and technology coming together to really make that experience what it should be, which is really a happy moment. Shouldn't be the moment where you get, stressed out and start crying again, right?
Yeah, it's so right. I mean, I know exactly what you're sharing now because I had to buy a home and had to go through this pain. I think some things in life, like weddings, I don't know, births, I don't know births because I don't have a kid yet, but I'm pretty sure that weddings and real estate purchases are they're just emotional when you dream about them, but when they actually start to be realizing, it's a very painful process and a very offline process as well. And I love that you mentioned that you're using technology and bringing this to like where we should be today, 2024, being like, tech driven and more streamlined, easier, less painful and all. And I'd love to hear more about when you mentioned the technology, I would assume that you need to make sure that you're building like this trustworthy network of lawyers and then making sure that they also get the, legit buyers, like people who are really buying real estate and not just someone trying to, I don't know, do money laundry or whatever. So is there a way that you make sure that this remains like a safe space and but also you streamline the process through technology?
Yeah, absolutely, Ed. So obviously, one of the big things when you are an online company versus for those of you that may not be familiar with buying a home, usually you'll end up in an office of a title company, an attorney or notary, which will sit beside you and look at your ID and maybe ask you some questions just to verify them. And as we know, as things move more online, you really need to do a lot more due diligence to make sure that the person that is claiming to be your customer really is your customer. And especially in our business where we're dealing with, a high stakes transaction. We're not talking about, dollars and cents. We're talking about large amounts of money, and like you said, it is trust from all angles that needs to happen. So for us, one of the things that I'm sure you guys tackle all the time with Persona is, especially over the last decade, technology got so good, and in fact, I believe that technology today, specifically for ID verification and preventing fraud and money laundering, is a lot better than kind of the human or the face-to-face alternative. And there's a lot of debate about that, and not only in our industry, but a lot of other industries. Some people are just, very much nothing happens unless I see the person face-to-face and they sign wet ink. Where in reality, the level of sophistication as well on the other side, on the fraud or on the crime side, has also grown and evolved. It's no longer, I remember when I was a teenager putting together a little fake ID so we can get into the bar, and it's evolved, in multiple since then. So our technology is actually the only way that I see that you can potentially prevent some of these, bad actors to come into your process, because technology can not only, check that the ID is valid and verify with the proper authorities, but you got facial scan, you've got biometric, you've got, I'm super excited about what AI brings to this space, because there's a lot of different ways that we're now, not only seeing and enhancing the human limitation, but now you've got, basically unlimited computing power that's also working in your favor to do that validation and just give you that assurance. So we're all over those types of tools and processes, and what we find again is it's already better, and it will continue to get exponentially better than the alternative, which again is the face-to-face human interaction. And let me take a look at the driver's license or whatnot.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And I remember when I moved to San Francisco, one of the challenges that I had was not knowing anyone here, not having like a trust network. Was how do I, can I trust this person, on a Facebook Marketplace to just rent, an entire home and pay this amount of dollars? And I couldn't really. I was like, I just can't trust. There's no way I can trust this person. They haven't been verified online. There's no evidence that this person is known. So what I ended up doing was having to go through a friend who referred someone else, and that's like let's call it the KYC, they know your customer, of the age that we're in. And I'm still like surprised that this is not like something where back to what Didi is doing is you have this process of verifying. Thankfully, using Persona. I mean, I'm obviously biased, but I'm pretty sure we're doing a really good job in keeping up to date on all potential AR fraud and also making sure that you verify people online. And that just brings so much more confidence when you're making that decision. And it's to your point, it's not like a few dollars, it's like hundreds of dollars, if not more. You put like your life savings in it. So you want to make sure you trust the process, you trust the platform that you're dealing with. And then the lawyers is the same. They're like, I want to make sure that my customer, they're legit. They can do what they claim that you're going to do. That this purchase is not just like, a whole fraud scheme here. There's something here. And it's really, really important to do that. And I appreciate that. I mean, I'd love to see Dita doing this in different countries because we definitely need that elsewhere. But I'd love to hear more about like, how how do you feel this is impacting the real estate industry? Because you're one of the pioneers in doing this from what you mentioned. You've been doing this for a few years. Are you seeing changes in the real estate industry? Anything else that you're seeing that Dita is helping influence as well?
Yeah, that's a great question for sure. Like anything else, like any industries evolved, from retail to e-commerce, from common like transportation to the Ubers and all that. I think a lot of industries have evolved in the last couple decades to become, the digital experience becomes the de facto standard. Real estate is not quite there yet. Real estate is actually by far the world's largest asset class. There's no larger asset class than real estate. We're talking about, residential and commercial. Yet the issue with real estate is that it's still very old school and it's hyper fragmented. You literally have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of different actors. I believe in the US, there's about 1.3 to 1.5 million real estate agents, and loan officers and banks and lenders and buyers and sellers and marketplaces. And when you start having this very, very complex web, you pretty much have as many experiences as you do people, right? So everyone thinks of customer experience or thinks of their journey map in a very different way, because that might be my special sauce, right? I might be the guy that drops off a barbecue on closing day and doesn't matter what happens, that's always going to be my trademark. And I'm going to have to follow that playbook, which is absolutely great. But ultimately, real estate is changing. And I believe a lot of it is actually driven from the consumer. The consumer wants, like yourself, wants a trusted experience, wants to know that they're in good hands, and most importantly, wants to be there guided by the various professionals that they have and complemented by technology to know that, my dream of home ownership can be realized, but I don't have to have a nervous breakdown by the time I sit down on my new couch, right? And have my first pizza. So obviously there's a lot of really, really great companies in the space. Prop tech has become a thing over the last decade or so, in terms of really dedicating the industry to commit both on the residential side and on the commercial side. How do we make sense of this fragmentation and all the common problems and friction points that this industry has, again, from getting a lead all the way to getting your keys, and make it a really great experience. And I wholeheartedly believe that whoever figures out that best experience, and again, I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but Amazon and Uber and others have set the standard, right? It's almost brainless that you click a button and see what happens, and magically what you desired arrives to you, whether if it's a meal, a taxi, or a pool table that you've ordered. Why can't it be the same thing for buying a home, or like you said in your case, Ed, like renting an apartment, that that you're dealing with a trusted party, that everything's going to happen according to plan, that all your information is secure and kept confidential, and you're not sending your $4,000 rental deposit to someone who claimed their landlord, but they're actually a fraudster overseas, right? So that's where I see us at least playing a role in that last mile and really becoming great at what we do. We've seen amazing reviews and helped so many different, home buyers and sellers and homeowners realize that last mile doesn't have to be when you pull your hair out.
It makes so much sense. I love that you mentioned this. Maybe like this could be a segue into our next question about like the vision and the future of real estate. But when you mentioned the fact that this is fragmented, that there's so many players in this market, it makes so much sense because you have from the ideation of like, I want to buy a home to the point of like doing my research, doing my pros and cons, analyzing, okay, what's, viable, what's not. And then whether I have enough credit to require like this loan and make this loan from the bank. And then you have other players, other challenges coming in, which is an example is in the US, you have a credit score. But if you came from abroad, you don't have a credit score. And therefore, you cannot just, borrow money from the bank, So it's a challenge on top of a challenge. So there are many ways in how technology can be integrated to make this a better experience for everyone. I would imagine this, as you said, whoever comes with like the best and most seamless integration will win, or at least help influence the market to win, because consumers is at the front. Like they are the ones making the choice, and they were the ones using the technology to make this decisions and purchases. So I'm very, very, bullish on this. I would love to see this happening more often. And I'd love to hear more on the future of real estate and even like future of Deeded, because obviously you're conquering Canada today, but I would imagine that you have bigger plans for the future. What's next for Deeded, and what do you see? Where do you see the real estate market going?
Yeah, for us, again, ultimately, it's the journey of really removing the friction, and sometimes it's removing, sometimes it's abstracting it. But the way I see our business, and you're not going to probably hear this from a lot of entrepreneurs, is that if we play our cards right, in about 5 years to a decade, we're obsolete, and I'll explain why. Why I would be here saying that we should be obsolete is that you've got enough automation. If you think about sort of what we are and where we play, is we're almost like the checkout button when it comes to you've selected your home, you've dreamt of of how you're going to achieve it, you're finally achieving it. Now you just need to get those keys in your hands, or hopefully in the future there's more digital or app-based keys, right? But ultimately, the way I see us evolving is that one-click checkout button platform where Ed found his dream home, you found a way to afford it, you fell in love with it, and now you're just clicking a button, and we're here to basically congratulate you and give you a great experience. Maybe it's your favorite beverage and your favorite meal waiting in your new home when you open your door, and you're there to ultimately celebrate that milestone, and just do you to stretch out on your couch and enjoy your new place.
Love that. I would like to tell. I love this idea, and I'm thinking about like maybe if we could like make this exercise together. If you have like a magic wand that you could just make technology work exactly how you want it to work and did it at where you want it to be, how would that journey look like from the customer? So as you mentioned, like they have the dream home that they saw, they want to click and buy. What would that process look like for them? Like, did they have to do research? Do they know, I don't know, neighborhoods, affordability, how do they deal with the documentation? What would that dream be, if it was like reality today for you?
Yeah, no, it's a really great question. I think ultimately everyone's gonna want a little bit of a different journey, because we're all human and we all make decisions differently, right? I know a lot of friends of mine that have purchased during COVID properties sight unseen. So they've seen a virtual tour on the internet, they put down a deposit, they were able to close their entire transaction, never even seeing the place. And that's especially true for pre-construction. I mean, there's tons of condo buildings that are being built, and you're basically buying a drawing. So there's really no good reason to go and see a model suite, because it's not essentially what you're going to get. Then you've got folks that really need to visualize, have a conversation, have a consultation. I think that's where the evolving role of a realtor or consultant comes in, as being able to really handhold you through the process, and at the same time also use all the great tools. And again, AI has really changed the game, or generative AI specifically, in the last year or so, in terms of enabling even some of that local information to bubble up, because that local information to say, well, what's my neighbor like, and what's the nearest and what's the best school for my kids, has also been sort of buried underneath, and with a certain amount of people in the neighborhood. Now it's about to bubble up. So ultimately, I feel, there's different journeys, different people, but ultimately there will be a frictionless experience, just as, there is a frictionless experience to get whatever stuff you need today, or or to get around, or to book your next vacation, or to get your next meal. I don't see real estate being any different. And again, we've seen that with even higher ticket items. Teslas, like, millions of people are buying Teslas, again, sight unseen, and online, and that's a pretty high value. That's a bigger purchase. I think ultimately, homes are going to be next. I don't know if it's always going to be sight unseen, but definitely removal of a lot of those steps and friction, and knowing that ultimately there's trust, and that you're in good hands.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I'm thinking even like Vision Pros and EVRs, helping you with the journey, as you're doing your research, maybe getting to a point where, as you said, ready to buy. It's just like this seamless experience. It would be great. I mean, I wish really that this becomes something that's realistic. This would be fantastic, and maybe more industries need that. I feel that a lot of the companies, like what you're doing relates to that, is that they're modernizing very standardized processes and making it like, okay, we're adapting to the future, making sure that this is like future proof. And this is amazing because it's touching like generations that are, more inclined towards online purchases and all. And it makes completely sense. I love that. So Reuven, if people want to, follow Deeded, if they're like interested in learning more about the product and how you guys operate as a platform, is there like a website they can follow, or like if they want to maybe keep in touch with you on LinkedIn, can you share your LinkedIn as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is deeded.ca. So CA for Canada. So you can check us out there. You can contact us through there if there's any interest, or if you do operate in the Canadian market. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, Reuven Gorsht, you can find me on LinkedIn. So send me a connect request and tell me you saw me on the podcast here and what you thought, and I'd love to connect with you.
Awesome. That's great. And any final words of wisdom for 2024 for all of us?
Yeah. So I think it's going to be an interesting year. I mean, I think we're seeing, a major shift from, what we saw during the pandemic times, economically. I know from our perspective, we've seen the impact of, high interest rates, what they could do to real estate transactions and pricing. But at the same time, I'm also super optimistic, and reason being is there's always tons of opportunity. We've got so much great feedback and validation that we're on the right path, and we're getting that feedback, almost on the hourly and the daily. So we're excited to continue to build. There's probably never been a better time to build and evolve with all the shift that we're seeing both around the consumer, which we talked about, and obviously technology is shifting at a very, very exponential speed. And then bringing those two together is just, it's a fun journey. So I think that's the goal for 24, is to really fuse everything together and continue to create value.
For sure. Yeah, I love that. And thanks again for the time, Reuven. Wishing you a fantastic 2024 for the Deeded team as well. And yeah, thanks again for all of this, and hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I hope you liked this episode. And if you have any comments, and if you'd like to see more guests like this, make sure that you leave the comment below. Maybe you can tag someone you'd like to see interviewed in the next episode. And if you have a startup that you're building, we're here to help you. Go to withpersona.com/startups and apply to join now. I'll hope to see you there, and thank you again. Bye.